Hello, everyone. Just like to welcome you to the May 20th, 2021, 12 p.m. session of this year's UAA virtual conference. It's good to have everybody back again this week. The title of this session is Bingo, Mastering Virtual Team Mental and Social Engagement. And it will be presented by Elaine Lewis and Allison Jensen from Utah Valley University. I'd like to welcome Elaine and Allison, and I'll turn the time over to you for your presentation. Let's get after it.
So thanks for the introduction, Kelly. We're very happy to be here. This session is specifically designed for supervisors of advisors, but any team member can gain some ideas from the presentation. So we are glad to see you here and look forward to talking with you today. As Kelly said, my name is Elaine. I serve as the director of the First Year Advising Center.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Jensen, and I'm one of the 3 assistant directors in the First Year Advising Center.
Before we dive into our session, I do want to recognize that we're doing a session about employee engagement in a less than engaging setting. This presentation is actually an adaptation of a presentation we do for all UVU supervisors on our campus that involves a lot of polling questions, chat conversations, shared resources, breakout rooms, things like that. So we've provided our contact information at the end, so please feel free particularly to request any of the resources that we mention throughout the presentation. We're more than happy to share them with you. So in the best interest of time, in the next kind of 45 minutes we have together, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So you can see here the objectives for our session. We feel that a positive office culture is really foundational to achieving these objectives. So you'll see that positive office culture is kind of a theme of the presentation that we have for you today. We also want you to leave the session with a clear plan and of different things that you can do to help with engagement in your department. So we'll provide lots of examples. And as I said before, happy to share any resources that we mention as well. I do want to provide a little context before we dive too deeply into the presentation. Since we're a pretty new office of advising at UVU. First Year Advising officially started in July of 2019 as a completely brand new office. Our staff was made up of both new employees and a group of individuals reassigned to our office. I think it's important to mention this because initially the folks reassigned to us were taken away from a work environment that they knew and they loved and a supervisor they trusted and respected for something very different without having any kind of say in that decision. So understandably and rightfully, these reassigned employees had a lot of reservations and negative opinions of their new role, the leadership, and kind of other team members too. This meant our leadership team had to spend a lot of time focusing on efforts to build trust and community among our team. So right when we were getting into the groove of that, we've been together for almost 6 months, a pandemic hit and we moved everything online. So we had to rethink our entire strategy for building trust and community in our team into an online environment. It was a challenging time for us, but our strong focus on that employee engagement piece, trust, transparency, things like that, positive office culture has allowed us to build what I can confidently say is an exceptional team committed to student success, student care, and the mission and values of UVU. So our first priority when we talked about improving employee engagement and morale among our team was to create a positive office culture. It's a big topic, so we do think it's very important, and we broke it down to 3 sections: communication, engagement, and empowerment. We'll go through all 3 with you today. We knew that trust in our team and commitment to our mission would never be achieved without strong, transparent communication. So we'll focus on 4 recommendations in that communication space first. When we ask supervisors at UVU which of these 4 areas is their greatest strength, they most commonly have a response about discussing and elevating concerns and making information readily available. So kind of have that in your head as you think about your own skill sets and where you could improve as well. Ultimately, we want to provide really good feedback for individuals and for our team. So those other two items that maybe at least supervisors that you view aren't quite as strong with are going to be really important too. So we'll move on to this particular first item that a lot of people are fairly good at, and that's discussing and elevating concerns. We've found a lot of great success gaining employee trust by discussing and elevating concerns, both personal and job related. As supervisors, we always open our one-on-ones with personal questions about an employee's family, hobbies, and other interests to build a connection and rapport. I also try to end one-on-ones with a simple series of questions about what I can do as a supervisor, or also stop doing to make someone's job easier. We get a lot of great dialogue and conversation out of questions like that. When elevating the concern past just the simple discussion, we focus a lot on closing the loop. It's important for employees to know that their concerns were discussed and any resulting action that was associated with them. Allie does a great job of this with the group of counselors that she supervises directly. They keep a running list of discussion topics, have a conversation, and even make some recommendations of solutions to problems. Then Allie brings them to our leadership team to have another discussion. Once things are figured out, after the discussion takes place, Allie carries it back to her team to share the results of the conversation, or they sometimes actually see changes in our processes and procedures as a result of the concerns that they're elevating. At both the assistant director and our department level, we try to spend a lot of time, about a third of our meetings, just in a general kind of discussion topic environment where people can voice opinions and feel heard. So I know we have all been to a meeting that could have easily been communicated in an email. For our advisors, this is time that's really frustrating because it's time away from their students. So we found initially that our staff meetings were full of announcements and maybe not the best use of time. We've since moved our staff meetings to a more intentional professional development time, connecting with and learning from other campus partners, developing our own skills as advisors, things like that. But we found that we still need to have information available. So we have thought through that a little bit, and we focused on sending information out immediately through our communication kind of version of Slack on our campus is called Microsoft Teams. We send a weekly update in addition to those immediate announcements that come out through Teams. Once a week, this weekly update comes out, and it's things that are both job related and not. So example, yesterday there was an opportunity for free lunch on our campus. We made sure that everybody knew about that, both through Teams and through our weekly updates. And then also more job related things like course placement. These weekly updates are included in one large Word document that we share online in the cloud kind of environment where all of our advisors can access them readily. And then team members can also quickly search the document for a piece of information that they may need. We've found it really valuable with onboarding new employees as well as a quick reference tool for them. In the image here, you can see a Teams conversation that we had recently where a counselor's concerns about changes to our kind of student, well, we call it MyUVU. You probably have something like it too, related to math placement and testing were up for discussion. So they brought it in through Teams, had a conversation, elevated their concern, came up with a solution, and then we were automatically, as soon as that solution was up, we're able to post a positive result and loop in those individuals in sharing the result of the conversation. Providing regular feedback and rewarding good employees are two things that are really critical to help employees understand the expectations of their positions. Our advisors always feel valued, but it's good to provide them feedback and reward them as well. We try to be very intentional with both those small and larger rewards and recognitions. We can't leverage a financial bonus for everything that's awesome, but we try to find a way to have an alternative to that that's something a little bit smaller, like a thank you card, a free lunch, a simple gift, something like that. At the start of the semester, we provided all of our counselors with a crunch candy bar with an attached saying that said, "You always come through in a crunch," kind of to recognize that they're working really hard at a busy time in the semester, and we want to show some gratitude for that. So although rewards from leadership like Allie and I can be great, we also have, and my phone is ringing, sorry guys. We also have an opportunity to latch on to positive feedback from our students and our colleagues too. So we try to distribute a quick 5-question student satisfaction survey after appointments, and our assistant directors use this to provide open feedback to on the survey results as a way to provide positive praise for their counselors. 90% or more of those responses are always positive, and it's a really great reinforcement for our counselors to know that they're doing wonderful things. Other questions, though, can provide us an opportunity to have direct and constructive feedback for our counselors as well. Thinking about that peer-to-peer positive reinforcement, providing regular feedback and rewarding good work, we've coordinated a project on our team that we call Nice Notes, that are messages from colleagues to one another that we kind of collect anonymously and share at events like a retreat. We've had some growing pains in 2019 when we first started with performance reviews. So our team has taken this idea a little bit differently when we're talking about regular feedback and rewarding good work. Our performance evaluations, when we took that approach, we focused on using them more as a motivation for employee engagement in 2020. So throughout the year, we focused on providing regular feedback in 2 ways for that performance evaluation. First, our direct supervisors did regular check-ins with their employees about their established goals, and we tried to make it clear that the goal and the evaluation are 2 totally separate things. So it allows a less guarded conversation about professional development for the employee, and they're not worried about not achieving their goal and getting a negative evaluation. The next thing that we did is for any of our employees that didn't score so well in their performance evaluation the year before, their direct supervisor worked with them to develop a plan to improve, and that really was a positive thing because it became a team effort. Their improvement wasn't just on them as an employee, it was on you and your supervisor together to get things done. And I think our employees really appreciated that promotion and support. So our next item you can see here, publicizing and expectations and remaining consistent. Like probably many of you, we have a large group of employees with the exact same job description in our department, right? They're all academic advisors. But for us, we also have those individuals supervised by 3 different direct supervisors, so assistant directors. For this reason, equity and stability of expectations are very important for our team. We want our advisors to feel that they will be treated fairly no matter which assistant director they report to. We've done a lot to clearly publicize expectations, like guidelines about flexible work hours or opportunities for remote work, things like that, through our weekly update or sent from the director level or even through an all-staff discussion. This helps the team know that everyone is being held accountable and to the same kind of standards. We do have moments where employees request some unique flexibility, right? So to keep things consistent, we always talk about these unique requests as our full leadership team to ensure that all of our direct supervisors are handling things in a similar way. We've come to realize there is a fine balance between giving direct supervisors autonomy in our area and also remaining consistent so our entire team feels like everything is equitable. I mentioned on that last slide that we had some challenges with performance reviews. So in 2020, we wanted to be incredibly transparent with the entire process. We chose to develop an entire rubric for evaluation for all of our first year advisors that the 3 supervisors would use for consistency. And we also made it public to the team. So it's very clear, this is how you score this way on this particular item. Here are the things that you should strive for. We'll happily share that rubric with you if you're interested in it. Please just let us know. Last year, we saw our employees actually using that rubric in their self-evaluation and using the rubric as a guide for actions and behaviors in a really goal-driven way. So there never was really an issue in consistency evaluations between the supervisor and the employee, because it's really clear what the expectations were. To introduce that rubric, though, I put together a video to explain the why behind the move to the rubric, which I think is really important. When we're publicizing things, we need to explain why we're doing it. And also hosted some office hours for everyone to come in and have a conversation so that they could clearly see what was going on. At the end of performance evaluations too, we actually posted our complete bell curve. So anonymous, you couldn't tell whose scores were whose scores, right? But just generally, you could see a clear bell curve in all of the reviews by all of our supervisors to show that it was a fair and equitable process. So talked a lot about communication, and I have communicated to you quite a bit. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Allie now to share about our next topic.
All right, thanks, Elaine. The next leg to our positive culture stool, we like to, we have communication, we have engagement, we have empowerment. And so the second leg is engagement, and we really need all three of these legs of the stool to be balanced and to create and sustain positive team culture. Engagement is what I like to think of as the action leg of the stool, and we encourage engagement, team engagement through virtual events, celebrating and elevating, and then mindful inclusion. So Elaine kind of touched on this, and we all have a shared experience, right? We've all, in higher education, well, I mean, globally, we've shared an experience of going through a pandemic together. It's kind of interesting, and it's funny to think back in March, mid-March, and think about how I waved goodbye to everyone in the center, and I really thought I'd see them in 3 weeks, so I didn't even really leave. I thought, okay, I'll see you in a couple weeks when this is all blown over. But the good news before that is just a week before we were all sent home to work remotely, we were introduced to Teams, and we had to figure out Teams and how to incorporate it into our practice. So it was wonderful that we at least got a taste of it before it became an incredibly huge part of our advising practice, right? We had no idea how much we would have to incorporate into our practice. So with this, we started to plan some mandatory fun, because now our entire team, which is really new, a really new team, getting to know each other still, we knew we needed to still engage and connect. And how were we going to do that when we were all remote? So we started planning mandatory fun, and we started adding monthly 30-minute breaks to everyone's calendar. The expectation was that if it was on your calendar, you attended. This picture is actually from one of our events, and you can see our team is showing their individuality with team backgrounds. Elaine is actually known as kind of being the queen of keeping her backgrounds in sync with the holidays, and she even shares all packs of holiday backgrounds that we can all incorporate and have a good time with using Microsoft Teams. Another one of our favorite virtual events that I can share with you is when we asked our team to send in a picture of their first car. So for this 30-minute event, virtual event, you want to be engaged. You don't want it just to be a talk, and a talking head to the whole group. You want everyone to be involved. So one of these activities was asking each of our counselors to send in a picture of their first car, and then Elaine created a game to guess whose car it was. And it actually turned out to be a ton of fun, and it led to a lot of conversation and laughing and engagement. So it was a great event. But sometimes our events are centered on holidays, like a virtual event we did for a December holiday break is we had conversation holiday bingo cards. So it was just a way of, you had to weave the things on the bingo card into the conversation, and they were random holiday things. It was pretty funny. We had a great time. I mean, you just have to be creative, right, in this new virtual environment. Another virtual event that started out as a virtual event that became a cookbook was we had a virtual event where you shared a picture of your favorite recipe, and then the recipe, and you talked about it, and that actually ended up leading us to creating a first year advising center cookbook that we then shared with the rest of our advisor forum here on UVU campus. So that was pretty fun. So like most of you, we were pretty new to supervising our team remotely or being on a team that was all remote. And we weren't sure how we were going to engage. This is obviously pre-pandemic. We weren't sure how we were going to engage with our team. We didn't know, are they all ready to start the day? I mean, when you're not in the office, you don't know, is everyone ready to engage? And so we started with 8 a.m. morning check-in questions. So when we were together as an office, we could see each other, we could engage, we could have some check-in, but and it worked out really well. But remotely, how are we going to do that? So we started with these questions, and actually Elaine, I've kind of pointed out or highlighted a few areas. You can see that Elaine would oftentimes post these questions by 7 a.m. because we've got some early risers and counselors in our center that would prefer to answer the question earlier. But by 8, it was pretty well known that each of the counselors would, in some way, or between 8, 8:15, 8:20, that they would answer this check-in question. So as you can see, we created a hallway chat just for these questions, so it doesn't get intertwined with all the actually fairly important general information that we share on Teams. So we created a FAC hallway chat, kind of like a water cooler, where we could post these questions, right? A couple of things I want to call out about this is that it's an easy way for the team to interact with each other. As you can see, we've got team members that are giving all kinds of fun answers. Oftentimes, we'll have team members share stories, and that leads to more questions, and that leads to basically fun interactions with each other. It's started the day off in a fun and positive way. It's usually a fun question that leads to some interaction. So I think it's a great way to start the day. And then honestly, as leadership, it allows us to check in and make sure, hey, our team's all available. It looks like they're ready to start the day. It's a way to check in, make sure everyone's good to go while you have part of your team remote, part of your team on campus. I mean, it's just kind of a mixed bag. So it's really been great. And I think we're coming up. I think it's well over 300 different questions that Elena's had to come up with. So she actually has a list that we could provide for you if you wanted, with the different check-in questions that we've used, some more popular than others. All right, so engagement is all about celebrating and elevating. We found that honestly, the easiest way to boost our positive team culture was to celebrate and elevate our team. So you can do that in a lot of different ways, through birthdays, personal achievements, work anniversaries, work milestones. For birthdays, we found kudos boards, and I'll share that example in a minute. We did this with check-in questions. So our virtual, our mandatory virtual fun, we turned into like a way to get to know the birthday person a little bit better. And through that, we have found that one of our counselors is extremely good at playing host for these events. So questions go out to the birthday person or counselors, and they answer them, and then the host decides on what's most entertaining of those answers, and then we kind of talk about it and have a good time. We also have the check-in question. I kind of touched on that a little bit. It's a really easy way to make the check-in question revolve around the birthday person, so it's easy to share a GIF or a little a personalized message to the birthday person. So that's a great way to acknowledge birthdays around here. Graduations, babies, personal achievements, work anniversary, they're all great ways to celebrate, and we really try to pay attention and do our best to recognize and celebrate. We actually have a professional development and culture committee in our center, and one of the counselors on that committee is their job is to kind of reach out to counselors and find out about those little things that may go unnoticed if we don't ask, right? And so we ask about them, and they end up celebrating. We've also recognized the entire team during incredibly busy seasons. I know advising, we all have those incredibly busy seasons. So we would, when we're in the office, we can bring in lunch and we can eat together, of course, socially distanced. We've had work anniversaries. Elaine, as she said, First Year Advising Center is a new center here at Utah Valley University, so we found it really important to celebrate our first anniversary. We're now making plans to celebrate our second anniversary as a center, so I think those are great things to celebrate as a team. Our first anniversary, we marked it with having t-shirts designed with our new logos. That was pretty cool. We've elevated individuals for beyond departmental awards by nominating for awards like Advisor of the Year, or encouraging our team to submit Wolverine sightings is what we have as a program here at Utah Valley University. Really easy, gives them a $5 credit to use at the bookstore or for food on campus. We went as far as for the holidays when our team was working remotely, we had to be creative. We wanted to get things to them. So we, as a leadership team, we masked up and we delivered holiday gift baskets to our entire team, which was quite a feat in just creating that map to get to all of our different counselors. And we also have an About Us wall, with what we call as an About Us wall, and that has pictures, individual pictures of our counselors up on a wall, and it's a fun picture, a little bit more casual pictures, not in our business attire, but we do have our first year t-shirts on, and also just give some information that's a little bit more personal, makes us a little bit more approachable to students. I watch my office is right across from that wall, and I watch the students always go over to that wall and read the bios. So that's a fun way for us to connect with students. I promised you would have a slide a little bit about Kudo Board. So if you haven't used Kudo Board already, I don't know about your teams or have you been on, but for us as a center, we have a fairly large, over 20 people in our center. And for us pre-pandemic, it was a bit like a goat rodeo, honestly, trying to get everyone to sign birthday cards. It was always to the last minute. And so we had to come up with a solution when we were all working remotely. How do we celebrate these birthdays? And we found Kudo Board. And that was our birthday solution, and it honestly has worked so well for us, and I don't want to go back to the goat rodeo anymore, so I think we're going to continue the Kudo Board after everyone is back working on campus. So just one resource for you. Elaine and I have actually given this presentation a few times, or a version of it, I should say, a longer version, a few times to groups on our campus of supervisors and managers and directors. And I mean, like Elaine noted, it's a presentation about engagement, and so it's meant to be engaging. So it's a lot more engaging in different teams environments. But this, I wanted to at least show you a screen grab of the engagement we had with some of those supervisors and managers, just to say we all have really good ideas out there. Like you can see, there's monthly staff spotlights, the weekly wins, daily stand-ups, which at first we thought was like stand-up comedy. We had to get a little bit more information from this manager, but then it was just like, hey, stand up and just talk and shout out what's great about life, that day or that week. So anyway, I think still it could be a cool daily stand-up idea for comedy. But the other one is bringing in snacks and having breaks. Hey, that's a great idea to do with your teams. And then just a shout out. And I think that's maybe just a different way of, elevating and engaging with your team. So just wanted to point out, I know everyone has a lot of great ideas, and we'd love to hear about them. Wish we could share. The other stool, or the other leg on the stool of positive culture is engagement, is mindful inclusion. I'm sorry, I'm still on the engagement. So I wanted to talk about mindful inclusion, and first ask a question just out there, which you can answer to yourself, is everyone on your team basically the same person? And yeah, we're all doing a lot of the same things, but we're really not the same person, right? Even I would stretch to say, even if you look alike, and even if you look like cousins, sometimes that can happen in Utah, but you're still different. You're still really different. And so we are so grateful for all of the diversity on our team. And we've learned that it's so important to be mindful of the diversity when planning engagement with your team to make sure that it's inclusive to all of your team. So for example, our team ranges in age from 19 to 68. We've also had a variety of combinations of counselors working on campus and working remotely. We have introverts, we have extroverts, and these are just some of the factors that create the different diversity in our center. But we've experienced challenges as we've come up with ideas of engagement with our team and trying to make it exclusive for all of us. So one of the things we try to do is, I shared that early on, we put this mandatory 30-minute engagement and fun. And we started that out with Jackbox games, if you're familiar. It was great, it was a lot of fun. As we started to do that, we started to recognize that some of our team wasn't engaging as much with those Jackbox games and didn't feel comfortable. So, and the participation was a little bit limited, so we knew we needed to change. We were being mindful of being inclusive. And additionally, we found some of our check-in questions could be exclusionary. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a check-in question that referenced some video game technology, and a few of our counselors weren't familiar with it. But thankfully, I think we've been doing this so long and we've been engaging so long and we're so comfortable with each other now that the counselors that were not really understanding the reference, we're able to just jump in and ask questions, and everyone gave them supportive thumbs ups and hearts. So it ended up being really inclusionary. So there's examples that way. One of the things that has been a great inclusive activity for our team and has been a big hit that we've used several times is Ignite presentations. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ignite presentations, but Ignite presentations are all about being fast and fun. It actually started out in my hometown of Seattle back with Microsoft back in 2006, I think. And the tagline for Ignite is enlighten us, but make it quick. And so it's basically a fast PowerPoint presentation on something that that person is passionate about, or maybe wants to teach you about or share with you, that only lasts for 2.5 minutes. And we have just did this again for our retreat, and we had a ton of fun. I wanted to include some examples. I'm not going to show you the PowerPoints, but I'm going to show you a slide of what these Ignite presentations can look like. Okay, so this one was a fan favorite, and it was teaching all of us how to make our own bacon with just a few slides in 2.5 minutes. An additional bonus for these presentations is that we put them up in the cloud in the box, our box folder that is shared with our entire team that Elaine referenced earlier. And so we can go back and reference these PowerPoint presentations. I still reference a PowerPoint presentation from a year ago that an advisor shared about the best places to eat in Provo. All right, here's another presentation, and this is an example of a presentation of one of our counselors sharing what they're passionate about. You can see on the side of I'm giving you the main screen and I'm showing you the side screen. So it can be a couple slides, it can be a few or more. But what this virtual activity does is it hits on most of the things we want to see in an engagement with our team, which is boosting empathy and socialization, team cohesion, and improving morale. We have a lot of fun with these. This is another example. These presentations can take us to places that we've never been, and they give you a different perspective. I'm honestly, personally, not a cruise and haven't been a fan, but after I watched this presentation and saw the slides, I was like, wait a minute, I might have to consider a cruise again. Sometimes these presentations are just weird, and I hope Kyle's not on this call, but if he is, this is one from our assistant directors, and it's about Skinwalker Ranch. And I kid about this, but the reality is this has kind of been a running joke in our center where Kyle and I have kind of become obsessed about Skinwalker Ranch because he had an experience there. So we were really excited to hear that he was going to do one of these Ignite presentations on Skinwalker Ranch, and we wanted to hear from Kyle firsthand and with pictures on his otherworldly experience on Skinwalker Ranch. So you can see it just really becomes really individual, right, and fun. Here's another one, and like I said, this example shows that this was just 4 slides, and it's whatever the person wants, and it's totally individual. So I love that about Ignite. And that leads to my last point that I want to talk about, which with the mindful inclusion is that you can also just gear your one-on-one activities or meetings on the individual. One-on-ones can be opportunities to be more focused on the individual and not the entire team. So for example, I know I can't ask all of my team to do the Wolverine walk with me. I want to get outside, I need fresh air, and I actually have one of my counselors that feels the same way. So we do our one-on-ones together and enjoy the mental and physical benefits of being outside while engaging in our one-on-one. So that's just one way of like, hey, think of the individual and be inclusive in what's important to them. All right. I think I'll turn it back to Elaine.
So the final part of building a positive office culture, thinking about inclusion, trust, transparency, is empowering our team. And for us, empowering our team is more than just within their work responsibilities, but also in some other areas as well. We've done a great deal of hiring this year, and through that process, we've been intentional to not just hire the best candidate, but also hire the best candidate that fills the gaps within our current staff. As an example, we just recently brought on a new counselor who previously worked with international students because we recognized a need that we had related to that international student population. Fantastic advisor outside of that, but definitely a great bonus too. When we've asked other supervisors where they feel the most opportunity to improve is in this area, pretty much without a doubt, they always identify flexible work options. And even when we're doing our work primarily from home. So Allie's going to share on that one in just a second. But right now, we'll talk a little bit about delegating responsibility based on strengths. And I suspect that we all understand the importance of this. To delegate responsibility based on an employee's strengths for both employee engagement and departmental success. In fact, we have presentations on our campus that focus entirely on this, right? We've all participated in Gallup Strengths, other activities there to really help identify individuals. We take it a step farther in our area and we try to identify experts and empower them to really kind of serve in a certain role for us. As a result, we've built some subcommittees of individuals passionate about specific topics like assessment and evaluation, inclusive communication, other things like that within our team. These often short-term committees are formed with the purpose to find a solution to a problem that's been previously proposed. We're constantly having subcommittees each semester about registration solutions. It's always a theme for us. When a subcommittee comes up with a solution, we do our best to implement it. In these types of subcommittees, we also try to delegate responsibility past traditional department leaders to our non-supervisor level employees to kind of chair the committee. Allie showed an example of that earlier with our Culture and Development Committee that's led by one of our counselors who does an exceptional job with that. As a couple of other notes here, we also try to do our best to delegate presentation responsibilities among our team for staff meetings. This elevates those individuals again to that expert status that we just mentioned on the topic for our staff, and they become the go-to resource on that particular topic. We also try to delegate the First Year Advising Center role on institutional committees to best in the best way as possible to get counselors passionate about the committee's vision and the goal instead of just dividing up responsibility among our leadership team. Finally, I want to mention a small experiment we did in fall of 2020. We intentionally removed anyone who had a leadership responsibility in our team or a supervisory role from subcommittees and all of our professional development discussions that we do internally within our area. We found that active engagement in these, particularly the professional development, increased significantly by not having someone in positional authority in the conversation. I assume it's because we've removed that expert out of the group and it decreased the pressure to really come up with the right answer, and our counselors just had a conversation, right? So as a result, we've handed off all of our internal professional development group discussions to our counselors, and they get feedback from the team about the topics that they want to talk about. We identify a webinar, a reading, something like that. and coordinate with the session leader and then have that discussion. This summer, we're doing a book club, and our leadership team is not involved in that planning whatsoever. Our team picked the books. Someone else in our team is planning the kind of stages of the process for that book club and is making it work completely separate from our leadership group. So next I want to talk about allowing interest to lead professional development. And I only have one item here because I think it's the most important. Please encourage your team to think outside the box. I've mentioned that we do a lot of internal discussion group based, low cost or no cost professional development within our team. However, I always try to find myself using more costly professional development as a way to reward, engage, and empower my team with new ideas and perspectives. For this reason, we've done our best to prioritize professional development with an associated cost in our budget to push individuals to think outside of the box when it comes to their professional development. We don't need all of our counselors attending every NACADA conference. So we've done our best to expose counselors to opportunities outside of this traditional experience with NACADA. We know UAA is great, we know NACADA is great, but there's other things out there too that our employees need to consider as well. So we've allowed a great deal of flexibility in professional development funding requests we approve, as long as we go through a process to approve it, and as long as the individual can tie the professional development opportunity to their work and the mission of our department, we fund it. So as an example, we just recently had a counselor complete a continuing education course about starting a small business. The counselor works with students in the School of Business, so although it wasn't about advising, it was still a great fit for the employee. They got a professional perk about their own personal small business that they own, and also a perk in helping their relationships with their students who may be doing something similar as well. We see these as opportunities to become experts in an area like students with disabilities or addiction or inclusive communication, anything like that. There are tons of opportunities for professional development, conference, course, book, whatever it may be, to really help improve employees.
All right, I'm just going to follow up really quickly with the empowerment of adapting and offering flexible work options. So I struggled a little bit coming from the fast-paced technology of an industry, and sometimes higher ed reminds me of a little bit this clock. It's classic, it's beautiful, I love it. I love retro things, but I also wish it went a little faster and I had a little bit more features, right? Change is hard for everyone, but I think change is slow. For higher education, we got thrown into this pandemic, right? And all of a sudden, now the option for remote working is happening, right? And different flexible options. I want to reference an article that was posted in April 2018, so pre-pandemic. Dr. Ward Ulmer, the interim president of Walden University, addressed the slow pace of change in higher education, and he likened it to the classic game of baseball that has been around for like 180 years. But with very little change. But even the classic game of baseball has made a series of changes to improve the slow pace of the game and address consumer demands. That's where we're at in higher education. And now we can see that flexible work options will attract, I would say, top talent. That's what they do in industry. They have different ways of attracting talent with game rooms and flexible work hours and flexible office space, all to have the top talent come on board to industry. So that's what we can do in higher education. I hope it's a part of higher education. So let me just briefly talk about how we've been flexible about offering different flexible work options. So we actually offer 4 different options in our center. One is flexible time during fall and spring semester. I think we kind of talked about adjuncting. Our counselors all have master's degree, are required to have a master's degree. So therefore they could also adjunct a class if they want. what we do for this, we offer 3 hours a week to all of our counselors, whether they want to adjunct or not. We encourage them to take a class or to adjunct, or they can use that 3 hours a week however they want. Now, this is not a 3 bonus hours. This is, they still work their 40 hours, but they can adjust a lunch. They can come in early, they can leave late, so they can have those 3 hours in the middle of their workday to teach, attend a class, or do something else. So that's one flex time that we offer in fall and spring. Summer flex time is a little bit different. I offered this, or I brought this idea to leadership because, again, coming from industry, I know advising can be cyclical, right? We hired university students and it was very seasonal, right? And before I came to university. So I thought maybe we would have a little bit slower summertime. So I proposed this flexible time in the summer. In reality, we're incredibly busy as a first year center, which is a little bit crazy, but the good news is that we offered the flex time and it actually made this flex times opportunity for our counselors even more successful and appreciated. What we do there is we can offer them up to a full day. So some of our counselors are actually working 40 hours in 4 days and then taking a Friday or a Monday off. Others are just taking a few hours, but it's a little bit more flexible in the summer. And the next flexible program we have is that we, of course, are adding the opportunity to work 1 day a week remotely. This will be offered to all of our counselors as an option. Also, in kind of pairing with that, we are trying to provide more options for students to have advising appointments in the evening hours. We have a school that has a lot of students that are working and a lot of students that are working full time. So now with this flex time, we're going to offer flex time to students, well, flexible hours to students, and offer that our counselors could work 2 hours in the evening, anywhere between 5 and 10 p.m. And then they would not work 2 hours, and they could find 2 hours in the day or that week that they can do something else. They can come in later. They can leave earlier, just in trading those hours. So I just want to say that those are just 4 ways that we've found as a center to offer flexible hours and flexible work options, and I think it's been received very well. So that's pretty much it.
So the last quick plug we want to do, we know that you all are academic advisors and naturally awesome people. And I bet you know other people that would also make awesome academic advisors. So as a quick share here, our first year advising center is growing and we're lucky enough to have a few new positions that we're recruiting candidates to fill right now. So if you know someone that could benefit from this opportunity, please share it with them. There may be someone in your community that you know, but you've never thought of as an academic advisor before. This is an opportunity to kind of get them into an awesome career path. So last, we're going to thank you for joining us today, and I will ask Kelly if there have been any questions in the chat, or invite you to ask questions as well at this point.
We did have a question and a comment. One of the questions was, do you do the check-ins every morning? And when you said you had 300 or so questions, I figured, yes, you do them every morning. So that was answered. And then just a comment by Tasha. She said, wow, I love and am inspired by all of the really cool things that you all do to make your team feel valued, seen, and appreciated. We can wait for a second for more questions if you want to put them in the Q&A, everyone, but that was wonderful, wonderful information, especially for directors and team leaders. Just great. Yeah. We've been so swamped here at Snow College that I think it's just nice to see, okay, we can kind of take some time and team build and build our morale a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We really build that time into our calendars for our team, right? We expect it. One thing that I think sometimes is challenging for our team to understand with professional development or team building is that maybe in the short term it is time away from students, but in the long term it's going to have a benefit for you, whether it's professional development, a growth opportunity, a skill that you can use to apply in at a later date with a student who may really need it, or if it's just team building where you can learn to rely on your colleagues, and maybe when you're in an emergency situation where you need some support, you're more willing to access those colleagues, even to just ask a base level question, right? So there's some good things there that we appreciate. And Tasha, to answer your question, we do check-in questions 4 days a week. We have an early morning staff meeting on Tuesday, so we don't do it on Tuesday, but Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we always have a check-in question. And it's amazing what you can find on the internet of random questions to ask people. But we do have a repository of those that we'd be happy to share.
Fantastic, thanks. We'll wait just a few more minutes if there's any other questions to post. I'm fine with awkward silence.
So Julia, it looks like you posted a question. Do you have a handout or a place we can access those questions and resources? And we do have, like, it's an Excel file where we keep them. I will be transparent in that I haven't updated it since about March, but we're happy to provide that. If you'd like to send us an email, we can definitely get you connected to that.
Do you want me to put that slide back up so you can see our emails?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you can post that.
Let me put that up really quick. Okay, you bet. Thanks to everyone, though. It's been awesome. I wish we could connect more with the participants, but hope everyone enjoyed the presentation.
Maybe when someday soon when we can all meet together again, we'll have to attend a more engaging, interactive one of your sessions. So I would like to thank everybody for participating today. The next sessions will begin at 1. So thank you so much, Allie and Elaine. It was wonderful information and for all of your hard work. And hopefully we'll see you all at the next sessions.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.